We are joined now by a six-time Gold Glove Award winner and three-time All-Star and one of the best defensive catchers in Major League history, Jim Sundberg. Aside from his individual accolades, Sundberg helped Kansas City win its only World Series in 1985, and since his retirement as a player, worked as a broadcaster and served as a senior executive vice president for the Texas Rangers until 2014. Jim, how are you today?
Good, Landon. Thanks.
Good.
Glad to be with you.
Well, let's start with your playing days, your rookie season, in fact, with the Rangers in 1974. Billy Martin had taken over in Arlington and helped guide Texas to a second-place finish behind the juggernaut Oakland A's, who would go on to win their third straight World Series title. What was it like playing Billy ball?
Playing for Billy Martin the first year in '74 was probably the best of the 2 years. He made it through half of '75, but it's not easy. Billy thought the game centered around the catcher. Because it was my first year, there were some tough moments of having to be chewed on a little bit. So, but Billy had a knack for turning a team around pretty quick. But as much as it was turned around, it also went the other direction as well. So it was not as easy. It's more difficult for a catcher than probably any other positions to play for Billy.
And I've recently read the new Martin biography, Baseball's Flawed Genius, where many elite managers, including Tony La Russa and Buck Showalter, stated that Martin's knowledge of the game was unparalleled. What did Martin share with you as a young player that gave you an edge? I mean, other than him getting on you all the time, did he share some information with you that made you a better player and gave you an edge on the field?
Not really. It probably set me behind as a catcher in game calling. I think Billy's best asset, I think, was probably his charisma and in trying to motivate and instill some players and I think he wasn't afraid to actually put some young guys out there and try them. In '74, we had 4 award winners. Jeff Burroughs was MVP, Billy was Manager of the Year, Fergie was Comeback Player of the Year, and Hargrove was Rookie of the Year. So there was a lot of things that went right. He was very argumentative with umpires. Wanted me to constantly second guess some of the close calls, and that didn't put me in too good of light with the umpires. It took several years to try to repair those relationships during the time Billy was umpire. So, Billy was manager. So anyway, but he understood talent. I think one thing is he was probably a good scout. He kind of knew talent, and knew where to place the guys.
Then in the latter part of your career, you were traded to Kansas City and, of course, helped the Royals win it all in '85. KC was down 3-1 in the American League Championship Series to Toronto. They stormed back to force a Game 7. You belted a 3-run triple off of Blue Jays ace Dave Stieb in the 6th inning of that game to put the Royals comfortably ahead, leading to the pennant. Walk us through that at-bat and its result.
Well, I got into the on-deck circle, and there was 2 runners on, first and second, and Steve Balboni was hitting, and I think what most hitters will do in the on-deck circle, they begin to strategize, begin to think through the at-bat that's coming up, and so in reflecting upon Dave Stieb's previous at-bats that I had with him, I felt like he was going to probably start me off with a slider, and he did. It was for a ball. It was too low. And then the next pitch, he threw a fastball. My hand just kind of exploded. It was a ball up and out over the plate, and my hands exploded. And the wind was blowing down the right field line that night, and the ball was got into the wind a little bit. And Jesse Barfield, the Blue Jays right fielder, pretty tall guy. There's about a 10-foot cyclone fence there in the old ballpark. In replay, the center field camera was looking right down that fence line, and when Jesse went up to look like he was going to go up to try to catch the ball, it bowed the fence out, and right at the point that it bowed, the ball hit right up on top of the fence. So it stayed in, and I had to run around, got a triple and 3 runs scored, and then the whole game changed after that.
Would you say that's the biggest hit of your career?
Yes, I would say it probably was the biggest hit of my career. Yes, it was. It was a very special moment, something that I had was prepared for.
Then in the Fall Classic against the in-state rival St. Louis Cardinals, the Royals were once again down 3-1 and down 1-0 in the bottom of the ninth against flame-throwing reliever Todd Worrell. Dane Orch looped a single to right to plate 2 runs to walk off the Cardinals and force Game 7. You scored that winning run. Now, aside from the obvious trying to score, what was going through your mind when the ball came off of Orch's bat and as you neared the plate with Andy Van Slyke's throw coming into Darrell Porter?
Well, I really was kind of somewhat surprised that Dick Hauser had not pitched run for me. I kept looking at the dugout, and finally I realized he was not going to pitch run. And so at that point you begin to think through all of the things you've got to do to score. The first thing was to get a good lead, make sure I got a good lead. The second thing is to read the bat off the ball. As soon as the ball's hit, I've got to know immediately if it's going to be in or not. And then the third thing is cut the base, third base, cut it tight. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth thing is really responding to the catcher on the slide. So sure enough, I got a good lead. I read the ball well off the bat, knew it was going to be in front of Van Slyke, knew he had a strong arm. I cut third base well, and then Darrell Porter came off the plate toward the infield, mm-hmm. and that allowed me to go to the back side of the base with a head-first dive and touch the base with my left hand.
Then you caught 8 Hall of Fame pitchers over the span of your career, including Gaylord Perry and Nolan Ryan. There have to be some stories on the Spitballer and the Express.
Oh, yeah. With Nolan, he... I was catching him in spring training of '89, my last year of the year we were teammates. I'd had shoulder surgery on my glove side, my left side, mm-hmm. that winter because of a collision at the plate. And I was, breaking that shoulder in and trying to get it strong again. And he's popping the ball pretty hard and really throwing it hard. And I'm feeling it in my shoulder. And then he kind of steps off the mound very seriously and in a gentleman way and said, get ready, I'm going to start throwing hard now. So, he pretty good, but it would take a long time to tell the Gaylord story. But basically, he never admitted to me that he threw the spitter. But my glove said it, my finger said it, and eventually found out that he kept it on his neck. And there was a very sophisticated way of how he got it to his neck, being in the dugout, and then and what he went through to do that, and what he went through to try to hide it from everybody. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, so it was an amazing deal. And he did get Reggie kicked out one time. Reggie Jackson, he was throwing Reggie one spitter after another, and Reggie got angry with the umpire, and the umpire went out and checked Gaylord and came back and told Reggie he didn't find anything. And then the next pitch was another spitter and struck Reggie out, and he went nuts. And after about 10 minutes, the umpire kicked him out of the game and came back to me and said, "Heck," he said, "Heck, Sonny," I said, "I've been umpiring for 2 years now. Gaylord's been throwing that for 22 years. Who am I telling not to throw it?" So he kind of got by with it. So, yeah, there's a lot of stories from those older guys.
Now, skipping ahead to today, the Royals made a magical run to the pennant last October. Some thought they'd come back to earth a bit here in 2015. It is early, but Kansas City seems to be the real deal. What's your breakdown of this Royals club, and do they have what it takes to return to the World Series?
Well, I think they do. I think they've definitely got some momentum. They got some young players. They've got an outstanding bullpen, and it looks like they're going to be a team to contend with for a number of years. I think the rotation has been good, and they draft well, they scout well, they draft well, and they develop well, and they've consistently been able to, in the organization, do that, over the years. But Dayton Moore, the GM, has done an outstanding job, and commend him for what he does. He's actually a scout background, and kind of almost a throwback from what he calls from the old school. But glad to see them doing well.
As noted in the open, you served as the Senior Executive Vice President for the Texas Rangers until 2014. Were part of the most successful run in franchise history. From 2008 through 13, the Rangers never finished lower than second in the American League West, including 3 consecutive playoff appearances and back-to-back pennants in 2010 and 11. The past 2 seasons have been a stark contrast, however. Texas has had injuries, players underachieving, Ron Washington's resignation. How's the team's fortunes changed so drastically and quickly, and how far are the Rangers from a return to competitive baseball?
Well, things can change fairly quickly. I mean, even for the '85 Royals, we didn't do very well in '86. Dick Hauser got sick halfway through the season. Found out he had a brain tumor. I think Saberhagen got hurt in '86. So injuries and things like that can happen, and it can turn quickly. We had a pretty good team together of Washington and Ryan and Daniels and myself and Thad Levine and a few other people. And, sometimes the teams just run their course. We were getting into a period where we're beginning to lose some of our key players. Josh Hamilton, Dave Murphy, Michael Young, Nelson Cruz, Cliff Lee had helped us in there at one point. And so we were losing. They were returning some players over, and the injury bug happened last year. They're kind of off to a slow start again this year. They've got hit with Darvish being down and Holland being out. And so it's it's a tough deal. If they get back healthy, they might be able to, the pitching staff gets healthy, they might be able to do something. But unless that's in place, it's going to be hard to be consistent. Their rotation, as it sits right now, is I think it's going to be a struggle to get them to a 500 mark.
Now, Josh Hamilton won a batting title and an MVP for the Rangers, one of the key cogs in that incredible run that included those consecutive World Series appearances. But there were times when it seemed as though immaturity and attitude issues emerged. Now, since departing, he's had issues with personal demons in Anaheim. Having been an executive with Texas, addiction aside, give us your honest take on Josh Hamilton.
Probably the best player in baseball if he wanted to be. I mean, there was one year that he was the American League Player of the Month for April and May, and then was probably the worst player for June and July. I think a lot of us question exactly how much he really wanted to play, how he wanted to apply himself. And when he was able to apply himself, it is tremendous results. But I think there's a real question as to whether he wants to do that on a regular basis. He's an extremely talented guy, a likable guy, a guy that is fun to be around, and it's just too bad that things are kind of falling apart for him.
Catchers like Ivan Rodriguez and Johnny Bench are so rare they're generational, but when it comes to the Hall of Fame, I'm curious about Yadier Molina. I asked Bench this question a couple years back, and he said no. But with his consistency with the bat and elite ability behind the dish over a very successful career, do you feel Molina is worthy of Cooperstown?
Well, it's too early to tell. Cooperstown guys, generally catchers have long tenures, and I think how he does in the latter part of his career will probably tell the fact. He's in a nice window right now. If he's able to extend that window for a longer period of time, then it would be. Obviously, one that you is really the best player of this time. I really think the golden era of catching was the 60s, 70s, and 80s. In that time period, there's a lot of really good catchers. I don't think there is so much today, but Molina is at the top of the list, and he catches, receives, blocks, calls a game, hits, and he does all the things you like a top catcher to do, and he's the standout today. You got Buster Posey, but Buster's more of the offensive type of a catcher than whereas Molina's really all around.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, you make a fair amount of appearances as speaker. Can you tell us about those endeavors?
Well, I have several venues of which I speak through. There are 6 different venues, and there are numerous topics, but I do a corporate keynote around leadership and teamwork. Also do inspirational, motivational, which is more of a personal element. There are some luncheon stuff that I call Legends of the Game, where I talk about a lot of the Hall of Famers. You mentioned 8 Hall of Fame pitchers. I have had pretty close interaction with 51 Hall of Famers, either teammates or guys that I played against for quite a few years that I know well. So there's, kind of blend that in. There's a faith-based part of that too, as I give personal testimony, and also the thing I've really been working on is really an armor of God piece. So, in relating it to my catching gear. So anyway, do a lot of different things, and we'll be launching a website probably in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, Jim Sundberg, it's been a thrill to sit and talk with you here today. Thanks for taking some time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.